Hi, my name is Will, and I've been traveling around the USA for almost 3 years, living and working remotely. In this video, I want to do a quick story about the experience I first had when I moved to Austin. And it's going to be representative of um, how I traveled to each city and town. Because almost like a song or a recipe, every story, every city I've been in has a different feel, a different energy. And the best way I could describe it is it's like a special mix of emotions that arguably you can summarize as a certain song or a certain stew of different emotions and feelings. And it's really colored not just by my own feelings inside, but the various different architectures, landscapes, cultures of each place. So I'll start with Austin, and then if we have some time, I may touch on a couple other cities where just the feel of it just gives you a different sense. So with Austin, Texas, keep in mind I drove from Houston, and that was like an 8-hour drive or something like that. At least it seemed like an 8-hour drive, and most of the time you're going through these, dull highways. And as soon as you got closer to Austin, I would say 50 minutes into Austin, so almost an hour as I approached the city, the roads got kind of dull, kind of dusty, and like 2 lane. It was almost like I was moving into like a deserted town. Now, obviously, it's not deserted, and it's not that small of a town anymore. But I couldn't really tell that coming into it. And keep in mind, most of these places, I have no family, probably no acquaintances. I mean, if I really tap my network, probably someone I know has lived there or used to live there. But I was kind of going in cold with not that much knowledge of the place. A lot of rumblings, rumors, thoughts, and opinions of the place. But you just really don't know until you get there. And then the road coming in is just kind of like this bunch of dust and dirt. And the dirt is not like that rich, dark brown dirt you might find up on the East Coast if you go up north, but it's kind of this like dried out, musty, white, gray dirt. It's almost whitish, like granite colored almost. And I bring this up because that's the first emotion I felt when going into this city. It's like, what am I in store for? Is this how the town is? And then the first day there, I land late and I get to my Airbnb I'm staying in, and I feel a bit better now because like the road leading into it was kind of like, wow, we're really in the middle of nowhere. We go into like a neighborhood, and the neighborhood is pretty nice, picturesque. I wouldn't say fancy or expensive, but it's like, oh, I know what this is like. We have a lot of these around Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina. So it was a similar feel. New Jersey, it's that type of, typical. Here's your house. Here's the lawn outside, and there were differences. There were slight differences. The width of the road was a lot bigger. The outside beyond this neighborhood was just kind of like dull. And turns out I was like in the outskirts of Austin, probably like a 20 to 25 minute drive into the heart. And that's probably where most people live if they can't live within the city where it's expensive. So anyhow, I'm there and I'm like, wow, this is like interesting. And then over the next few days, I'm starting to explore the city when I'm not working. And, you just get a mixture of emotions, especially during the time of year and how I was feeling at that time. You get a certain mix that's not the same for every city. In certain cities, I have more of a thrill or excitement mixed in with certain anxiety just because of the architecture or nature of the canyons or the beaches, or even just like the vibrant lights of like a city like Miami flowing through me. So even though I was nervous, I was kind of like feeling pretty good at the same time. But for Austin initially, it was more like, is this going to be the place for me? Because in the back of my mind, I'm also assessing, is this where I want to move to? And later on, I ended up really liking the city for the most part. But First few days were kind of like, I don't know, because I was driving in. South by Southwest was like either like about to start or it was in the middle of it, so the traffic was really bad. And you could drive into the city, but the drive into the city was like, man, like I'm on the outskirts. Like it's literally just like dirt patches for a while, and then construction sites where people were building neighborhoods to kind of expand this. So then you go in, you drive into the city, and then that's where the traffic starts to increase and increase, and you're like, man, the traffic's really bad. Do I have to bear with this traffic every time if I were to live here? And then you get into the city, and then you try different things. So like one night I went to like a free informal South by Southwest event, and it's kind of like a low-key area. The buildings are kind of small, but it's still kind of corporate. It's kind of chill. You get there, it's kind of like a rooftop bar hotel type of vibe. 80% of the people there are men, most probably engineers, data programmers. And you're like, I love the young energy, but like, is this for me? You just don't know. So, one song that kind of describes Austin when I went there was kind of Golden by Harry Styles. Partially because that was a song that I really liked and it was catchy, and I was listening to it a lot anyways while I was in Austin. So it just imprinted that like this is the song for Austin, Texas. But also because it kind of fit some of the emotions I was feeling. The song has a very fast beats per minute, which means it's a very fast pace, and it kind of fits that kind of anxiety I was feeling. But then when you listen to the harmonies, the melodies of the song, it's very soothing in a way and kind of calming. So it's kind of like almost acknowledging two things. Like, yes, there's a lot of anxiety here, but what a beautiful place this is, and you're going to be fine. And slowly over time, that ended up being the case. I spent a lot longer there. And some days, after work, I would go out to a meetup group of aspiring musicians, and we just kind of did like this icebreaker thing, went around, sat at different tables, and networked in a way. And it was so interesting because I had never had an opportunity to do that. You really have to be in certain music-bound cities like Nashville or Austin to have something like this. And it was at this giant pub. It was almost a big bar where you could literally see the alcohol being made because there's literally a factory inside of there. But it was just kind of like, out there in the middle of nowhere, and you just like drove to it, and it's kind of a bit out of my way, but it was like, kind of cool. And another day I went to a fitness class, like, just at a fitness studio, like think like Orange Theory or Barry's. And they just had like a free members promotion where you could try for free. And of course, droves of young people went out to it. And although it's not the best place to socialize because people are in and out, I did socialize with a couple girls there. And I was like, wow, most of this class is girls. Maybe this is a good place for me. And they were young girls too. And like one of the ones I talked to, literally, mind blown, came from my hometown, where I left before I went on this travel journey. So all of a sudden I didn't feel so alone anymore. And I didn't want to press it. I should have, but I should have gotten her Instagram or contact or something. So I never saw her again, but it was just really interesting. Maybe she didn't want it. I was like, maybe she doesn't want to be approached. Like, she's certainly not pushing for contact details. Maybe she doesn't want to be hassled. But the point is, I had a short conversation there, and I was like, the world is not that scary. But, it was just such a mix of emotions. It was me exploring various aspects of Austin. One time on the weekend, I went to a drum circle. The next, I went to Barton Springs, which is this big lake, kind of overpopulated now. It's like a lake that goes into a river, and then like a lot of people just spend a bunch of time swimming in the lake because it's really hot in the summers. And I just tried a bunch of activities in my free time. Even went out to the nightlife, which, as you might expect, is, it's a lot of people, but it's kind of a mess. Tons of dudes, and they're just all stuffed together, and the women can be cold. But still quite a fun place to approach um, if you want to. So, I got to tack on one of many different places I've been in terms of the nightlife. My favorite nightlife place, probably Las Vegas. I love the nightlife there. But it was just like a mixture of so many different emotions. The architecture there is just very unique in a sense where, the buildings really aren't that tall, but they're often a bit cluttered together. It's more of a bar scene than a nightclub scene, although I'm told there are clubs there. The colors at night are like, purple, bluish, purple, orange, reddish hue. And then in the daytime, I have certain memory splotches. I remember driving to like this random shopping center every week and trying a few acro yoga classes. And it was great and stuff. And like, I'm like, this is Austin. This is where they're known for acro yoga. And having a good time, but like also not having a good time because I was like, man, this class it's just like they're just renting a gym and doing acro yoga with like a few people here. Like, where's like there's hordes of people and women. So yeah, back then in Austin, I was certainly, as you can tell, very like kind of scoping it out from a dating perspective. But putting that aside, I think it really was just the memories I had there. And now that I'm looking back at it, I mean, it was a good time. A very unique experience because there's so many different things there that you just don't get that mix anywhere else, And that's the same for other places like Miami or Vegas or Tampa. Austin doesn't have those beautiful beaches of Florida. But then Austin has a very unique taco culture where you have some really well-decorated, wacky taco stores that make some bomb tacos that are very unique. Sometimes they'll throw in like breaded, like, I don't know, breaded shrimp into the taco. It's crazy what they'll throw into there. And it's super well decorated. The outsides look really weird too. But it's certainly much more of this kind of, I guess, bar, country-ish vibe than other places. But then there's also a lot of tech people there. If you go on like to a running club, as I did, then it's, maybe a little less country bar-y, but it's still kind of bar-y, outdoors bar-y, because we would like, still like, some of us would hang out and drink beer at this outdoor bar after work. So I guess my point is, it was just such a unique experience where you just got this strange blend of unique emotions. And so, it's one chapter of my life where I just got such a strange blend and feel for it. Just the energy, the vibe of it is just, every place is different. And you just get a certain energy from it. If I had to list a few emotions, it would be like a little bit of surprise, a little bit of fondness, a little bit of hesitation, a little bit of skepticism about whether this is the right place for me, some anxiety initially that faded over time, some fear or concern of like whether this is the place for me, some fearing or doubt of isolation in the sense that like, hey, I'm not a country dude and there's a lot of white people here, but there are also Asians, so maybe I could fit in, and just like, is this vibe right for me? And so it's such a really cool memory and chapter in my life where like every book I pull out or every chapter I pull out from every city just has such a different energy. And I just want to round this out by contrasting this to a couple other places quickly. So, if when I was in Tampa, it was a different vibe for various reasons. One, when I went to a running club, instead of like in Austin where there was like 50 people that came out, there was like 5 people. And so it was a much more kind of low-key, slow-paced life. But also, like, you could tell you were kind of close to the coast. There was rivers flowing through. The humidity was better. I kind of like humidity in a way. It was a different young energy. It wasn't that you didn't see droves of young people as you did in Austin, and it wasn't overcrowded and over traffic. And then the architecture just had a different feel. It was more like light blue, if I had to put a color to it, because the architecture didn't have that, you know, country southern vibe to it all the time. And you can, like, it wasn't like, you know, everything's a bar and you got to go to a bar and that's how you meet people, and you got to play some country music. It was just a different feel, and it wasn't as tech heavy. It wasn't like, you know, a mini Silicon Valley in terms of the people flowing through. So you just got a different vibe, and like even the sun and everything just sets differently. So it's hard to describe. And then, you know, you compare that to other places I've been, Miami, where it's a bit more of like like almost everyone there's Latin, and then there's like this energy to it, and there's a party mode, and then like at night, you know, people are, you know, going for it, and it's just a different feel versus Charlotte, North Carolina, where like you're really kind of in the middle of forest. It's kind of like a slow-paced area, but in a different way. Austin felt kind of like, you know, a lot of things being built out at once, and a lot of things were kind of dilapidated or kind of hippie vibey, whereas Charlotte just felt like an old town that, you know, all of a sudden a bunch of finance people came in, and then a ghost city, you know, was built in like a year or two, and people would come in for work, and it was just like a different type of young crowd. And then there's like Las Vegas, where, you know, first couple months while I was here, I had a really kind of strange energy because the Airbnb I was staying had a smell to it, and it wasn't the best place, and I was nervous and scared, and there's all these lights and stuff, and, you know, it was a certain energy, but there's really cool stuff too. So I ate like certain food that was just like cool and unique. They literally have a chain of houses here called Protein Houses for fitness people, and it's super well built out, super custom. It's not as old timey and rustic as a Texas place. And then over time, as I, you know, moved to a cleaner and nicer place, and I saw the cleaner aspects and the nicer aspects of Vegas, my emotions changed about the city. And, you know, at first I was just like, oh, this place is way too much. It's too stimulating, because I was on the strip for the first couple of days, and it was way too touristy, and I didn't like it. My opinions of it changed completely. So it really is such an adventure. It's really hard to describe, but for me at least, it's so amazing, and I don't think you can really fully understand the amazingness of it if you're visiting for a day or two. Like, you got to do something like me, where you take a full swing, like for at least a week in a different city, and you really try living there and immersing yourself with the locals and like the local population. The USA is a beautiful place. I wish I could express it to you, but thanks for watching.